need to visit him. I can't make it there. Hopefully he can come to me. I know he travels a little, or, you know, kind of like Mr. George said. Back that time, he did the traveling within the place. It was kind of hard to travel. There was no jets, there was no this, there was no that. It was dangerous, it was expensive, it was hot. So he sent a person to see if he can get Christ to come to him. He heard he was preaching in these areas, and he sent one of his servants out to go get him. And this guy was actually a painter. He would paint portraits of the king. Again, these guys are pagan. And the tradition holds that he saw Christ preaching one day. And he tried to draw him. He tried to get him down on a piece of iris, get a good image of sketch on him, but he couldn't. He kept on messing up for some reason. People were walking in front of him, you know, Christ was moving around. He just couldn't get it down. So he eventually went to Christ and said, like, listen, my king has requested you come and visit him to cleanse up of his leprosy. And Christ being hot, again, he's preaching, he's tired, he's hot. You know, in a way dirty, right? You're getting tired, you're hot, you're sweating. He took a handkerchief and just wiped his face. And it says that the holy image was implanted in this napkin. And this guy's really, well, I don't have an image, but I can take this back to the king. And he took it back to him, and he was cleansed of his leprosy. And the tradition holds that he was cleansed halfway, and that once when Christ's disciples came to that area and preached, he told them, I'm a believer, and he was cleansed fully of his leprosy. So that's what the Orthodox Church holds. But what I'm trying to say with this is that we had this icon, the start of the icon. This is actually one of the oldest icons going back to tradition. Also, St. Luke, the evangelist, is known as a patron saint for iconographers. Again, this is with the Orthodox Church, the Catholic Church as well, that he's one that's depicted an icon as well of Christ and the Virgin Mary. So we have this cloth, and so those are the miracles that come from it. And we see in the Acts of the Apostles as well that we have things like this that happen, right? We have, for example, in the beginning of Acts of the Apostles where Peter is walking, they're putting people in the shadows of Peter so he can be healed. Or later on we have Paul, as Mr. George mentioned, Paul comes into play. I think it's Acts chapter 19, I believe, where it talks about people would put handkerchiefs on Paul and take back to heal people who were sick. So, you know, these are things that are in the scriptures, these items that we're referring back to. So we have these images that play an important role for veneration as well. Unfortunately, we kind of come into an issue here with the spread of Islam. As Mr. George had mentioned earlier on his slide, you have the 5 major centers: Rome, Constantinople, you go into Antioch, Jerusalem, and Alexandria. Pretty much in that order. Actually, Jerusalem fell last. You would think that would be first because, you know, that's where Jesus Christ ministered, but it really went off the structure of the Roman Empire. An important city, Rome, eventually also an important city, Constantinople. These kind of took the 2 major seats in terms of the early church. But with the rise of Islam, we run into an issue where it had spread fast. Muhammad died around 630, actually 632. And you see the spread that happened. 20 years later, you have it continue here into Europe. And Jerusalem falls. The Patriarch Sophronius of Jerusalem, again, you got to put yourself into context here. You have these people that are attacking. Jerusalem was under siege for a couple years. Again, one way, if you couldn't break into the walls, you would siege them. You would cut them off, you would starve them out. And the defenders were tired, they were getting hungry, they were going to the Patriarch. Again, the Patriarch has a direct lineage of back to the apostles. But he's the, I guess you could say, the Pope of Jerusalem, right, in those areas there. Major, the church figure. The people are like, listen, we can't hold out anymore. We just gotta give in, let them in. You know, we don't know who these people are. You know, they're destroying churches, they're doing this, they're attacking. So they eventually give in. But they say, at least, all right, we're gonna give up. But please spare our churches, spare us. You know, we'll do whatever you want, but just don't destroy anything. And for the most part, again, there have been issues with the rise of Islam and Christianity. As we know, there are a lot of bad things that have happened, right? But there's also a few good things. And in this story that I'm trying to say is once the Patriarch submitted down, he opened up the walls of Jerusalem, the gates, and let in the Caliph Omar. So as he was touring his new conquered city, the patriarch Sophronis tells him, here, we're at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Do you want to come in and pray? You got to think at that time, too, it didn't really soak in, right? You're talking about 20 years later after the death of Muhammad. Is it a new religion? Jesus Christ is mentioned in Islam. Like, we really don't know. Like, we don't know what's going on. But he asked him, like, listen, you want to come in and pray at the church? And the caliph said, actually, you know what? No, I'll pray here at the steps. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because if I pray inside, later generations are going to probably take the church away because I pray here. So I'm going to do it here. Thanks for the offer. And I'll pray here. And this kind of builds into the next section here. Again, things travel a little slow, right? As we mentioned earlier, as Mr. Jordan mentioned earlier, it's not like it is now. If something happens on the other side of the world, we pretty much know about it. It's a major event within minutes, seconds. We run into an issue here, this iconoclastic controversy. And basically what this is, about 100 years after the rise of Islam, and there's many, again, I'm kind of putting things together here, summarizing, because you don't want to be here all night listening to me, you got better things to do. But, summarizing here, there's many other things that are going into effect here, but one issue is the emperor in Constantinople sees that we've already lost Antioch. We've already lost Jerusalem. We've already lost Alexandria. The 5 patriarchates have been go down to Rome and Constantinople. Who's going to be next? What's going on? What is happening here? But what is this new religion? I mean, these people, we don't really know who these people are. Like, we know a little, and what we know is that they don't like images. Is maybe God on their side because we have all these images around us? Churches back then would be something like this, even covered more so. Are we doing something wrong here? Instead of church, again, at this point where we said the church is still one church. There's no Catholic, there's no Orthodox, there's no Protestant, it's still the one church. Like, what is going on here? What do we do? So we come into the iconoclast controversy, which lasts about 100 years. It actually puts a major strain on the Christian faith. These things that we were talking in the very beginning about, the images that were used, these teaching tools, are they bad? Were we really doing bad things to ourselves by having them in our churches as liturgical aids, as teaching aids, as aids for veneration, towards worship? What's going on? So after a few councils getting together, persecutions as well as Christians, you had the Christians that were for icons, you had the other ones that were against it. Like I said, the church was literally split, like they didn't know what way to go. So it came out eventually about 100 years after, the Seventh Ecumenical Council, they got together and said that icons, and this is what the church always believed, going back again to the one church, no Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, the one church before we had a one denomination, said that icons are tools for worship, aids in worship. They're to be venerated, but not worshipped. And they made reference back to the Old Testament. Yes, you did have the idols, you're not supposed to worship idols. It's two different things, because if you read some more in the Old Testament, that the tabernacle had images on it. The temple, or the temples, because they were built and destroyed, had images in them too. But they were more used for liturgical aids in worship. So it brings us into today. Icons today. As we see here, we'll start here on the left, we have an icon of St. John the Baptist. And this one here, this icon is unique because this icon is in Chicago. It's in an Orthodox church in Chicago. You kind of see some lines streaking here, right? They say that this is a miracle-working icon. Myrrh is coming from it. And again, this is a thing that happens. God, as we believe as Christians, that He can bend the limitations of nature, right? As we say, it says in the scriptures that the virgin, as the prophet Isaiah said too, and other prophets, that the virgin will conceive and bear a son. Obviously, the limitations are bent there. With here, an icon, a piece of wood, the limitations are bent, again, with the grace of God. Moving on here, you have another icon here of St. George. And you see all this stuff around here. I'll give you a story real quick. One time when I was in seminary, we went on our senior trip to Greece to Mount Athos. And I know not many people have heard of that, but if you're Orthodox, you know that Mount Athos is a monastic community that's been around for a little over 1,000 years. And you have all the different jurisdictions of the Orthodox Church that are present there. You have Russians, Romanians, Serbians, Bulgarians. The unique thing about Mount Athos is they have a divine liturgy every day. Every monastery is required to have a divine liturgy every day, to have a mass, I guess going from the Catholic perspective, every day. And with time, they've accumulated gifts from emperors, from saints, from this and that. Many people have passed from these places. So we went and visited and stayed at a monastery for a weekend. And the monk was giving us a tour of the church. Here we got the manuscripts, some old manuscripts, some this, some that. And he showed us an icon. Again, this is not the icon, but to give you an idea. We saw an icon that looked something like this. And there were so many things on it, you really couldn't see the icon. You have, if you look at this closely, you're going to see chains, pearls, medallions here, whatnot, whatnot. But anyway, he told us to look at it. It was an icon of the Virgin Mary, kind of like, well, the people on the left here, if you can see this, it was an icon like this one here, if you've seen it pointed down. But again, covered again with gold, silver, and all that. So he said, look in here, you see there are two medals, two gold Olympic medals. Wow, 2 gold Olympic medals. What are they doing there? What did you have that, you wear it around your neck? I don't know what the Olympiad one day get it. What did they do with it? Did they hang it up on the wall? Did they store it away? I don't know. But they were on this icon. Why were they on this icon? Well, the story is that this Olympiad must have had an issue. I don't know what it was. They told me, I probably don't remember, but I remember seeing them there. And they said that the issue, he had an issue. And then he prayed at this icon, asked for whatever he was asking for. And out of his gratefulness, out of his thankfulness, that he gave something that was so dear to him, for giving thanks for having a prayer answered, he gave his 2 Olympic gold medals. And it might sound stupid, right? It's like, why would you do something like that? But for the person that had whatever transformation it was, or whatever prayer answered, something happened. There was a miracle that happened for this person. Again, for us, that didn't happen to us. We don't know. We don't understand. It kind of